Many of you are win and get into the fantasy playoffs. Now, the Week 14 waiver wire in this video specifically are going to help you a lot. Now, first off, make sure you are adding your handcuffs. We need to be adding all of our handcuffs to our running backs. If you don't know who they are, click the link in my bio. You can see my running back handcuff tier list in my rest of season rankings. But let's start it off by talking about Jordan Mason. Now, he's not widely available. It depends on the platform that you're playing on. I've seen him as high as 69%, but as low as 45%. Now, Aaron Jones, he left Week 13 with a shoulder injury. If Mason starts, we have seen him be good in a starting role. It's against the Commanders in Week 14, which is one of the easiest matchups for running backs. Now, Kyle Monungai, second week in a row, he's gotten more carries than DeAndre Swift. He's had a touchdown in 4 consecutive games. It's probably best that we look at Monungai as the David Montgomery role of years past when Ben Johnson was with the Lions. Devin Neal of the Saints, he got 17 opportunities in Week 13 with Alvin Kamara out. If Alvin Kamara happens to miss more times, Neal is a perfectly fine flex. He's got upside of getting better with more reps and playing time week over week, especially with some of these easy matchups he has down the stretch. Blake Corum is an S-tier handcuff. Kyron Williams did leave the game for a certain amount of time, but he did come back into the game. Again, Corum is an S-tier handcuff if he happens to miss any time, so make sure you get him added, especially if you have Kyron Williams. And then Chris Rodriguez, he's still the main primary ball carrier in Washington. He's not been great. He's been okay, but if Jaden Daniels happens to come back into the lineups, that's going to give the whole offense a big boost forward. At the wide receiver position, I have 2 guys at the top, both Christian Watson and Alec Pierce. They've been perfectly fine, consistent with some big boom games that have happened. I view them both about as a high-end flex wide receiver or a wide receiver 3 that I'm happy starting because I know that they have big upside. Now, Jaden Higgins, he's slowly becoming the wide receiver 2 for the Texans. Davis Mills has been feeding him over these past few games, getting it a lot while CJ Stroud's been out. Now, the cool thing is CJ Stroud came back into the lineup in Week 13, and it was really encouraging to see CJ Stroud come back in Week 13 and still feed Higgins the ball. Either of the Jets wide receivers, whether you want to go with John Mechie or you want to go with A.D. Mitchell, Mechie's a little bit more of the safer pick, while A.D. Mitchell is more of that big play, high risk, high reward player. If I could only pick one, it would be Mitchell coming off of 12 targets. And Devon Vele, perhaps this is a deeper league play, but he went 8 for 8 with 93 yards and a touchdown. It was a toe drag touchdown, very nice. If you remember, Vele got traded to the Saints just before the season started. My confidence level isn't very high with starting him, but if he can string together back-to-back good games before the fantasy playoffs, then I've got my eye on him. If you've been with me for any part of the season, you know that I've been talking about Brenton Strange and Darren Waller for quite some time. So if you haven't already, make sure you do subscribe to the channel. Brenton Strange, he's been the tight end 5 in back-to-back weeks, and now he faces the Colts, who have given up the 5th most fantasy points to tight ends. Waller happened to miss the last 6 games, but in his first game back, he went 2 for 47. He's not going to be a big volume guy as far as receptions, but the yardage and the touchdown upside is certainly there. Harold Fannin Jr., now this guy, rookie tight end for the Browns, he does not go down on first contact. He leads the Browns in all receiving categories with Shedeur Sanders in at quarterback. And Evan Ingram and Dalton Schultz, neither have a great matchup in Week 14, but Ingram had a season-high 9 targets in their first game out of the bye. And then Schultz, he's been wildly consistent, being a safe play all season despite only finding the end zone just once. And with the streaming quarterbacks this week, I'm going to be fully transparent. They're not great. Jacoby Brissett versus the Rams, this is about as elite as it gets. He's been the quarterback 12 or better in all 7 of his starts. The Rams aren't a great matchup in Week 14. He also gets the Texans in Week 15, so both those not ideal. But right now, he seems like a player you just keep on playing and you stay in the flames with, at least in Week 14. And Trevor Lawrence versus the Colts. Now, I don't know if it's surprising to you, but it was surprising to me to find out that Trevor Lawrence is the quarterback 12 on the season. I have no shares of Lawrence. I had him in my streaming category last week, and if you remember, he was the only quarterback in my streaming category because all the other quarterbacks were so bad. And for what it's worth, Trevor Lawrence ended up being the quarterback 5. But if you're in a pinch, maybe you have Drake May or you have Jackson Dart, I think Trevor Lawrence versus the Colts could get you by in Week 14. Now, this is where the confidence level certainly drops off a cliff. Sam Darnold versus the Falcons. Now, no, I'm not afraid of the matchup. It's not a bad matchup. But Darnold has single-handedly destroyed your week in 3 out of the last 4 matchups. You can play him, but just as I opened up the video with, if you're win and get in, I don't know how you have any confidence with starting Sam Darnold. And Tyrod Taylor or Tua, either one's perfectly fine in that same game matchup. Mainly deeper plays. Neither defense should scare you, but probably starting the quarterback will scare you a lot. And let's wrap it up here with some of the streaming defenses. I've got the Ravens versus Pittsburgh. Now, they are highly rostered, so I won't hit on them for too much. They could get to play against a banged up Aaron Rodgers or Mason Rudolph. Either way, it's in Baltimore, so that's nice. Commanders versus the Vikings. This is a good play if J.J. McCarthy plays. It's a great play if Max Brosmer plays. The Chiefs versus the Texans. This is projected to be a very defensive battle. Right now, the line's at 41.5 points. That's pretty low on the week. No fireworks projected in this one, so pretty safe to say that you should have a decent defense if you start the Chiefs. The Vikings versus the Commanders. If Jaden Daniels suits up, obviously they're going to take a tick down, but if they play against Marcus Mariota, I think it's a fine play. And then the Bucks versus the Saints. Now, this is mainly a bet against Tyler Shuck. We saw them face off somewhat in Week 8 when Shuck took over for quarterback. He played about half the game. Divisional matchups are always tricky, but I do think that the Bucks should be just fine in Week 14. And that's it for the Waiver Wire episode. If you haven't already, go ahead and click the link in my bio so you can check out my rest of season rankings and my Week 14 rankings that'll be out on Tuesday morning.